Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Barossi, and I serve as a sales business lead for Bayard USA. And I am so excited to have one of the most outstanding authors from 23rd Publication, a division of Bayard, with us this afternoon to discuss his new book. His book is so outstanding. It's called The Hole in Our Soul by Deacon S. James Meyer.
Please just call me Steve.
See, I can call you Steve.
Please
Thank you. Steve is an outstanding author, and we are so excited to have him join us at the LA Congress in February of 2026, next year. And we're going to be talking about that right at the end of our little talk right today. But Steve, I have a couple questions about the book.
Let's talk. Let's go.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, Steve. My first question. The book contrasts reconciliation with resolution. How do you see the distinction playing out in today's polarized culture?
Yeah, we are polarized, aren't we? We're very divided, and that was a lot of the motivation for this book. How do we find a path forward that brings us together? And we don't normally think about reconciliation in terms of resolution we don't put the two together. But the reality is this, right? When we're faced with issues and problems and we have questions or concerns or we have conflicts in our lives, our first instinct is to seek resolution. We want to solve the problem. That's what we want to do. So the first thing we do is we take that problem and we divide it into really two options. We reduce our choices to only two. One that represents what we want and the other representing what we don't want. And then we seek a solution, which we'll call a resolution to the conflict, that gets closest to what we want. So maybe we're able to manage it, maybe we're able to get all of what we want, but we end up defining our satisfaction based on what we want. That means resolution. We resolve the situation through mechanisms of sometimes manipulation, sometimes power, sometimes negotiation, but we resolve it in a way that tilts as best we can toward our own favor. Reconciliation looks toward wholeness. Reconciliation says, wait, there's so much more to this dynamic than just these two options, what I think I want, I haven't even applied imagination to this yet. So reconciliation says, let's look at this situation from all perspectives. And now let's look at how we can bring wholeness, how we can use this opportunity of tension to create wholeness and bring everyone back into harmony. So while the quest toward resolution inevitably leaves brokenness, even if it gets us to a place that's manageable or where we're self-satisfied, it still leaves division and brokenness. Reconciliation always pursues wholeness.
Steve, you wrote an outstanding book. The book was Living with Real Presence. Your Eucharistic chapter in your new book emphasizes breaking ourselves open and pouring ourselves out. How can we embody this in ordinary life? This is the theme you have carried out in your book. And I know you're from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I know you're probably sitting in your office, but tell me, when you're thinking about this, help me understand, how can we embody this in ordinary life?
So when we think about Eucharist, right? I mean, when Jesus instituted Eucharist, what he did was he broke himself open and he poured himself out, right? That's what he did with his entire life. And then that's what he expressed very dramatically and gave to us as gift in Eucharist. He broke himself open and he poured himself out. And we talk about that in a lot more length in living with Real Presence Eucharist as an approach to life. But in this book, in Live Like You Mean It, we go back and we're going to revisit that a bit, because it's in this context of pursuing wholeness and realizing that when Jesus institutes Eucharist, he breaks himself open, he pours himself out, but then, Dave, he says, do this in memory of me. Do this in memory of me. He doesn't say take this, receive this. He says do this. So that's a charge to break ourselves open and pour ourselves out as well. To receive within ourselves the gift that he's given us in his own flesh and blood, but then to do the same in the world with our own lives, to break ourselves open and pour ourselves out. And when we do that, right, what else do we break open and pour out? What else do we break down? We break down barriers that divide us from each other, barriers like ego, barriers like self-interest and arrogance and pride and anxiety and fear and stress and all of the barriers that we construct and put up that end up creating divisions between ourselves and one another, and they end up being problematic in relationships, whether they're individual relationships or social relationships. They end up getting in the way. So by breaking ourselves open and pouring ourselves out, as Jesus so wisely advised, right, we become open to that wholeness that we spend our whole lives pilgriming toward.
Steve, that book, Living with Real Presence, I just enjoyed it so much, and I have given it to many of my friends across the country because this book, Living with Real Presence, is outstanding.
Well, thank you, because I mean, you obviously have great taste in literature. You're very discerning, so I appreciate that.
So, with your new book, the hole in our soul.
Yeah.
My last question is: you write so candidly about marital struggles and reconciling with self. Why is inner work so critical before personal and social reconciliation?
Yeah, our faith journey is not theoretical. I mean, it's practical, and when it's well lived and well traveled, it gets us into the grit of life, and it helps us through the hard stuff. And anyone who's been married more than 5 minutes, right, ends up dealing with grit and difficulty and trial.
Yes.
And so often in our relationships with one another, whether it's in marriage and family or it's in the extended family with our neighbors, it's our coworkers, it's the people next to us in the pews at church. I mean, the reality is we have to live with one another, or we can get to live with one another. I mean, we could, and it depends on the mindset and the heart set that we bring to it, right? So this idea of seeking wholeness, right, comes down to realizing that we cannot be whole with another person in another relationship if we are broken in and of ourselves, right? So if you think about your car for a minute, Dave, and if the shock absorbers are broke, one shock or one strut is broken, it's going to throw the whole thing out of alignment, and your tires are going to wear unevenly. You're going to get poor gas mileage, and you might limp along for a while.
Yeah.
Increasingly, it gets more and more difficult to drive, and if you don't deal with that one part of that system, the whole system ultimately breaks down. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in our broader culture right now.
Yep.
We're seeing a systemic breakdown because we as individual parts haven't really taken care of our own spiritual well-being. And we're not dealing with our own brokenness. So I think you really have to first deal with the dissonance in yourself. We have all this willful dissonance where we have conflict between our heads and our hearts, between our values and our behaviors. And until we get whole in that, we're really going to struggle to be whole in relationships with other people.
Steve, you are giving a workshop at the LA Congress on Sunday afternoon.
I am.
And you're going to be hanging out at the Bayard booth.
Much of the day Saturday,
yes,
I'll be with you.
Most of the day on Saturday. And I'm going to be there with Steve. I'll be there to greet people, and Steve will be there to greet people. And I want people to know that your workshop is just number one in the country. I just really enjoy doing parish missions with you across the country, doing workshops and presentations with you. Steve, this new book, The Hole in Our Soul, I could see being a number one book because of your enthusiasm behind that. And we hope everyone, please, join us at the LA Congress. If you would like to purchase Steve's book, you can go to 23rd Publication, Bayard.com, 23rd Publication, look up The Hole in Our Soul, or look up Deacon S. James Meyer, and his books will pop up. Place your order, bring it to the workshop, and visit with Steve. I got to tell you, these are wonderful books, and this new book, The Hole in Our Soul, is just an outstanding book. Please go to the website. Steve, this has been a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I
Thank you,
really
Dave. I appreciate
enjoy
talking about
spending time with you, and we hope to see you at the LA Congress or across the country. Thank you, everyone.
it. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Steve.